Hi there, my name is Lo. Welcome to my channel where I discuss everything between Hermès and grocery bags. Today I wanted to do a video about why sometimes it's better to get a dupe of the bag that you want to have rather than getting the actual thing. I hear YouTubers sometimes say that you should just go and get the bag that you like, because if you get a dupe or if you get an alternative or if you get something that approaches what you actually like, you cannot really scratch that itch. And I would have to say that I agree to a pretty large extent. You have a bag that you absolutely want and that makes total sense for you, just go for it and go get it. But I've been finding that for me it's been quite helpful to get dupes of a number of bags or to get alternatives of a number of bags, at least first, to see if it's something worthwhile investing my money in. So I have 5 reasons why it is sometimes a good idea to get a dupe based on my own experiences. So first reason is to see if a style works. So my example here is this flap bag. It is a bit of a dupe of the Chanel classic flap. By the way, I'm just going to talk about dupes in this video because by no way do I support getting a replica, but these are all bags that are inspired by other bags of luxury fashion houses, but are not actually the real thing. So anyway, I thought I'd get this flap bag just to see if a Chanel classic flap was something that I might be into, because I do feel that they are beautiful bags, but I just found the investment too high, or at least to go and try it out for that matter. And of course you could say, well, Chanel classic flap will always increase in price, so you can just get it and you can resell it. But first of all, getting a number of these bags like a Chanel classic flap can be hard. It's quite an investment, so for the time that you have it, the money is stuck in the bag, and if you have to resell it, it's also kind of a pain. So I'd rather spend a couple of tens of euros on a dupe, in this case also a fairly nice one. It's at least a full leather bag. It's from this Italian brand Lavorazione Artigianale, so not a very well-known brand, but I think a pretty reasonable approximation of what a flap bag from Chanel would look like. Anyway, I got this bag and it's been mostly sitting on my shelf. I'm finding that I actually don't gravitate all too much towards it. Every time I think about using this bag, I find it too chic for what I'm wearing most of the time. So it's just not a very good match for my lifestyle. And I know that a lot of people wear Chanel classic flaps also in a more casual way, but for me it's not really the way to go. Plus this angular type of bag, they usually don't really appeal to me all that much. So quite happy that I tried this out first before I actually decided to go for the real thing. On the other hand, over here I have this bag from Lancaster. When I saw this, I figured that this kind of gets its inspiration from an Hermès picotin. So I thought it might be nice to try out the picotin bag by giving this a go. Again, a nice grained full leather bag. I think Lancaster actually does a pretty good job given the price point and what they make. It even has a little pouch that comes with it. So I was scared that wearing something just top handle all of the time, even though this one actually has D-rings, so you can wear it as a shoulder bag as well. I figured that that might not be something that I would actually enjoy, but I'm finding that I don't really have issues wearing a bag top handle all day long, depending on what I'm doing, of course. And these are just examples of whether particular styles would work for me, but you could draw it broader, of course. So you could also look into different colors, like is it worthwhile enough to get a metallic Chanel classic flap bag? Are you going to wear a metallic bag often enough? Or are you going to wear a bag with sequins often enough? How will it wear after you've worn it a couple of times? How careful do you have to be with it? But you might also want to get a dupe first to figure out if like an oddly shaped bag might work for you, like a heart-shaped bag or a round bag, for example. And I know you can go to the boutique and you can try to fit your stuff in there and you can try it on. Sometimes I do feel that it's actually more worthwhile to be able to carry a bag a number of times just to see how it's going to work out for you in real life. Like how fast are you actually going to get into your bag if you're in a grocery store and you actually have to pay in that point in time. So I feel dupes are a very good way to just kind of test drive particular variations of bags before you actually put your money towards the real thing. Reason 2, getting a dupe is a great idea if you actually cannot justify the cost per wear. So for me, this is a great example of this. Again, this is a Lancaster bag. It is a dupe of a Louis Vuitton multi-pochette accessoire. I really enjoy this bag, but only on vacation. I would never really go for it and wear this just on a day out. But when I travel, I just feel that the pouches are ideal. It works both as sort of a packing cube, but then also once at my destination, I can decide, am I just going to take the small pouch? Am I going to take the big pouch? Am I going to combine them? We have limited options. Because you are on vacation, I actually feel that this is a very good fit. But honestly, I don't travel all that much, and getting the actual thing, getting the actual multi-pochette accessoire, also with all of the additional factors that will be much more recognizable as an expensive bag, which I don't really like when I'm traveling, I've been just finding it ideal to get a dupe of this. Use it on vacation, and then when I'm back home, stuff it in my suitcase, where it will stay until it comes out for the next trip. So that's definitely one occasion where I will not get my cost per wear out of a designer bag. But you could also think of other situations, like I would most likely not get a expensive wicker bag of any sort, because summers here in the Netherlands are pretty short, they are pretty rainy. I'm just not gonna go out all the way financially to get a beautiful wicker bag, just so that it can sit on the shelf most of the time. And it would kind of feel the same about having a very fancy evening bag, because I don't have a lot of evening bag occasions. I'd rather spend a little less money on a special bag for an occasion, or try to dress up one of the other bags I already have in my collection for the occasion. Reason number 3, that is when there's something you actually don't like about the designer version, or something that's not acceptable for you at that price point. And here I have the example of this APC Grace bag. This is often considered an alternative for the Céline box bag. I think the Céline box bag is beautiful, but I also know myself, the smooth leather is just a big no-no for me. I know I'm clumsy, I'm always careful with my bag, but I am clumsy, and this smooth leather is going to be damaged at some point in time. That's why I opted to go with this cheaper alternative, because I can very much appreciate the style. I do appreciate it so much that I do still want to have a high quality variant of it, but I know that if I would actually get the Céline box bag, I'm going to scratch it up and I'm going to be very, very sad. That's why I went for this option instead. Reason number 4, wearing the designer version or the luxury version is actually not smart. For example, because you are going into situations where you cannot trust your environment to treat your bag properly, be it rain, be it people, or be it animals in your surroundings that might damage your bag. For example, I would most likely not get a luxury backpack, because the situations where I am wearing a backpack is usually sort of my last resort choice of bag. If I need something that's super convenient, if I need something that can handle all weather types, that is when I'm going for a backpack. It's not the type of situations I'd like to put my designer bags through. So if there was a designer backpack that I could really appreciate, and in this case there's none, I'm afraid, but then I would most likely go for a dupe and not for the actual thing. And then point number 5, which is you want to get on board with the trend, but you don't want to spend the designer money on that trend. So there's a lot of trends that also relates to materials, for example. So right now we have a lot of shearling, obviously also because it's winter, but particular shapes of bags or styles of bags might be very popular at one point in time. So I wouldn't necessarily be the person that says don't spend designer money on non-classic designer bags, because if you feel you love a bag, whether it's a classic or if it's a trend bag, if you see yourself wearing it for the longer term, or if you feel it's worth your money to go for that trend bag, even if you can only wear it for a season and will then pass it on, you should definitely do that. Personally, I'm very likely to only invest my money in the classics, because I cannot really sense the longevity of a lot of trend bags, especially if they're oddly shaped, for example. So if you want to experience the trend, but not at all costs, then getting a dupe might actually be a very good idea. So one question you might have, if by now you've realized that you might actually need to start with a dupe or get a dupe instead of the bag that you had in mind, is where am I going to get a dupe? Honestly, I think that a lot of fashion houses or fashion brands, or whatever you want to call them, replicate what others are doing. So I will see with so many brands that they put out bags which I feel are at least inspired, or you might call it a ripoff, of a bag that's been put out by a bigger house like Louis Vuitton or Hermès or Chanel. So perhaps you want to go for something that's completely under the radar, like for example with this brand that nobody's heard of. So when I was looking for this bag, basically I just went on the hunt for black leather shoulder bags. And well, luckily there's plenty of these out there. I've also heard of people just going on Etsy and very specifically looking for dupes of a particular bag. If you're looking for some more well-known brands, you can think of Michael Kors, Guess, Rebecca Minkoff, MCM to some extent even has bags that I might say are kind of dupes. So I think they also have a dupe, call it like that, of the Louis Vuitton Neverfull. Then obviously you'll be walking around with the MCM monogram, but that might still work for you. As I already said, Lancaster makes some bags which I think are actually pretty nice for how much they cost. You can also have a look at Myrta. Myrta is kind of a marketplace where Italian bag producers can sell their bags. And I'm also finding that with a number of these bags, they look very familiar to, for example, an Hermès Kelly. Rebecca Minkoff has this, I think it's called the Edie bag, which is kind of their take on a flat bag. Kurt Geiger has their Kensington bag, which is their take on a flat bag. So if you also want a flat bag and you don't want it to be very obviously a dupe of a Chanel classic flat, but you want it to have a bit more character, you can also look into these brands that are a bit more well known but on the less expensive side and see if they have anything that suits your taste. The only other tip I would have here is that you do invest in a dupe that is of sufficient quality for you to actually go out and wear it, and that you actually like it enough to go out and wear it. So I wouldn't run into Primark, for example, to get a Prada-ish kind of dupe of a bag, because the quality is just going to be so cheap and so poor, at least to me personally, that I'm not going to be wearing it anyway. So I always make sure that at least I do get something which I do enjoy wearing, even though it's not the real thing. And that's why quite often I still go for full leather dupes, except for this one because this is canvas, but also very specifically chose for canvas because I wanted to have something that's light to travel with. So yeah, that's just my last piece of advice. At least get a dupe that you're happy to wear, because if you're not happy to wear it, you're just not going to wear it, and then you're also not going to experience the benefits of having a dupe instead of having gone to buy the actual thing. So that's it for today. Hope you found it useful, somewhat insightful and or entertaining. If you have any questions for me, drop them down below in the comments and I'll get back to you. For now, remember, there's a styling, a situation and a taste for everything, and there's honestly nothing wrong with getting a dupe sometime. So be smart about your strategy and the way you spend your money. And of course, don't judge, wear whatever the bag you like. Until next time, or as we would say in Dutch, doei!